Hey guys, this is Sconty. You can catch me at twitch.tv/qsconty, link down below in the description. And today, I just wanted to do a little retrospective on DBD in 2021. Since it's the end of the year, happy holidays by the way, Merry Christmas, all that enjoy your holidays. I just wanted to take a look back and kind of reflect on where I think the biggest room for improvement or problems is on DBD. So, these are just my opinions, by the way. This is just how I feel. And a little bit of background about me, I used to be a rank 1 killer, then I got some friends, and I got to rank 1 survivor, mostly playing in Swifts, but also some solo queue games, and duo queue games. But I have a lot of hours playing this game, you could say, and I have a lot of experience with lots of killers and the game balance overall. So I want to kind of structure this video into 3 different parts: improvements for the general game, improvements for survivors, and lastly improvements for killers. And this is what I think are some of the biggest problems with the game here as we go into 2022 that I think need to be addressed. So let's talk. Now, number 1, problems with the overall game. Okay. So, let's start with something really simple, okay? I think that the Shrine of Secrets deserves to be updated. Ooh, not a bad shrine, by the way, Ruin. So, Shrine of Secrets has been in the game for years and years, and it's always given 4 random perks every week. I think that you would either need to increase the amount of perks available on the shrine to like 12, like triple it, okay? Because this is really old, there's way more perks. You should triple it, or you should make the 4 perks cycle every single day. That's what you should do for 2 killer perks, 2 survivors, either cycle every single day or have 12 perks to choose from once a week. And I think that would solve the problem where a lot of the times the Shrine of Secrets is just bad. And as a free-to-play player, it's hard enough already trying to compete with people who have all the perks. This would just give new players and people who haven't picked up all the perks a better opportunity to spend some of their iridescent shards. I know there's times when I've had like 20,000 and I'm just waiting for a perk or 2 to pop on the shrine and I don't get shit for a long time, so that's really annoying. And I think overall Shrine of Secrets is good for the game, but needs to be updated to have more choice for players. Okay, so that's number 1. And I think both sides would be cool with that. Number 2. Okay, so number 2 is more of a matchmaking issue. So one problem I have with the game is that survivors who are brand new to the game are too weak, like too low on the spectrum of skill, and survivors who are really good at the game are too high on the spectrum of skill. And I think we need to lower the gap a little bit, lower that gulf between these 2 points. So I think one thing that we could do is to make survivors at the top kind of come down a little bit from their super high power level, where the scariest thing in the game, the scariest players in the game, isn't the killer, it's the survivors. I think we should balance the game based on the top percentage of survivors and killers. So the balancing of the game should be focused not around new players anymore, which I believe it currently is, but around the top 1% or the top like 5% of players who are basically red ranks / rank 1s. And I think if we did that, we would see, like, looking at statistics and things borne out in data, you can find what the most common perks are used for survivors and killers, and try and bring those down a little bit in terms of power and impact on the game. And that would make things more competitively fair, because I think, like, the players who are down here are going to have a bad time no matter what. whereas survivors up here are going to use like everything at their advantage, and killers too. And if we just balance it around like the highest level of competitive play, and try and get it to a place where it's like balanced for both sides, I think that everyone will have more fun and more opportunity to really stand out. If you're truly good up here, you'll be able to stand out just that much more, head and shoulders above everyone else who's now brought down a little bit. So what am I talking about here? One of the big differences, I'm just going to talk about survivors first, between survivors who are up here and survivors who are down here, is survivors who are up here will typically do something like this. Hold on, let me switch sides. Survivors who are at the top of their game in like red ranks and shit will usually be bringing like super meta perks, not that this is a meta perk layout, super meta perks, you know, like some of the best add-ons and some of the best maps and offerings and shit like this. So they'll have really good toolboxes, really good like map offerings, like Ormond or something like that, and they can just use all of these advantages to make the game so much harder for the killer than it already needs to be. I think something that should be done is limiting the strength of items, add-ons, and offerings in the game, and the goal should be to nerf them in terms of power a little bit. For example, I think an offering should only give you increased chance to go to a map, and not even by a lot. I think an offering should give you like 10% increased chance to go to a map, and you could stack it with the other teammates, but every other map is still on the table, so there's more RNG. Like, if you brought an RPD offering, there would just be 10% more chance to go to RPD. And why are we doing this? So the reason why we're doing this is because some maps are more favorable to one side than the other side, more or less. And having just like more variety where one player or one side can determine the map, I think is too boring, too easy, and just not fun for the game. So I think nerfing map offerings is a good idea. Now, maybe some other offerings can get a look over too, like definitely the one that increases the spacing between hooks. Maybe you could take a look at that too and see if everybody's going to stack that, how that would play out. But you don't have to do anything for that right now. Just hit maps first and see how that impacts the game. Okay. And for killers too, definitely some add-ons are super OP. I think they did a good job of nerfing the Huntress hatchet earlier in the year, but some add-ons are just still super good. And I think instead of me giving you specific examples and you picking them apart, you should gather data from what the top killers at the top tier of gameplay are taking every single game, and think about like pre-nerf Spirit this year, what kind of add-ons we were seeing. I'm going to name this one because it was dealt with earlier, but remember when you'd see Spirit every single game with like mother-daughter ring? Oof, big problems. And I bet if you looked at the statistics and the win rates for Spirits at the top high level of play, you would see they usually bring mother-daughter rings, and that is like really impactful in the outcome of the game. I think you want to like reduce how good those add-ons can make the player, and really let the players who have like the skill really speak for itself instead of being carried by items, add-ons, and offerings so much. So yeah, that's number one. Number two, this is a really big problem I think that was introduced when skill-based MMR went live, mainly for killers, and this is just going to be a QRL for killers. So I understand when I queue for a game here, I'm going to click ready. I can no longer switch my character up here. Oh, you guys can't see the mouse, but look in the top left. I can no longer change my killer, and before skill-based matchmaking, you most certainly could. Now, I understand why this has been changed, because you might have different MMR on different killers. So someone like Pyramid Head, I'm probably going to have higher MMR than someone who I never play, like the new killers, who I don't have, so yeah. What I think they should do, and I know this is going to be hard, but I think you should let killers switch their killer while they're still in queue, and perhaps even when they still get into the lobby. Now, I don't know how this is going to work with the MMR system. I don't really care, but it definitely takes away a lot of choice from the player. If I see a team that has like 4 flashlights, I might want to play like Bubba with the add-on that makes them drop their items, or something like that. So maybe in the past I would have been able to switch from P-Head to somebody else. Or say I'm in a lobby and I'm playing Wraith and I see like 4 flashlights. I don't want to get burned all the time, I'm going to switch to somebody else. Now you can't do that, so it's like, it just feels bad to have to dodge and go back into queue. So I think there's something the developers can do to try and make that a little more smooth for the killers. And I don't think that it's impossible. I really don't. I think you guys can come up with a solution to that one. Although, I'm sorry, I don't know what it is. So, okay, that too. Talking a little bit more about survivors. So, how do we bring up the bottom of the... Yeah, how do we bring up the lowest tier survivors to be a little bit better? So I've been thinking about this for a little bit, and one thing that I came up with is the tutorial, right? So the tutorial has had a couple iterations. I think it's been changed 2 times this year that I've noticed, and I am not happy. I don't think the tutorial is great. Okay, I really don't. Here's what I think they should have happen in the tutorial. They should emphasize everyone does generators to win the game, and pretty much everything else comes second. You want to like prioritize the primary objective of the game over pretty much everything else. I think that would be really, really good for the tutorial. Everybody do fucking gens. Don't show them how to do totems. Don't show them chests. And here's something else that should happen in the totem. They should have a section where the survivor is playing, and the survivor tries to unhook like Megbot, and then as they're trying to unhook Megbot, they get yanked from the killer and hook themselves, because I think they should teach survivors that you have to be like careful of unhooking in front of the killer, and just some of the like core gameplay mechanics. But the tutorial is not super ideal. So focus the tutorial on completing the primary objective of doing gens. I think is a good healthy direction for the game. Other things that could bring them up a little bit more from the bottom, definitely the shrines. Definitely the shrines, letting survivors pick up a couple new perks, like having decisive strikes. Some games might be the difference between escaping or not escaping. Maybe they should start off with enough Eerie Shards for one thing off the shrine too. I think that would be nice. Just 1 perk off the shrine, that would be very good for survivors. And yeah. Okay. Here's another thing for the game. Overall, there's a lot of problems with the client server, dedicated server synchronization that were not in the game back when it was peer-to-peer servers. So people who played back when the servers were peer-to-peer know things like stalking on Ghostface, stalking on Michael Myers, grabs, sometimes hit detection at pallets or windows was way, 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 way better in the past. And now it's just really jarring, especially on the killer side specifically. A lot of time killers, it feels like you get a hit at a pallet, you hear the noise or you see the blood where you get a hit, but it doesn't register on the video game side, and that feels really, really bad. I think that obviously it's easy for me to just criticize the hit detection, but it needs a lot of work. A lot of work. And I think you should actually balance it. As someone who plays both sides, I think you should balance it more so that it's back similar to how it was pre-dedicated servers, where it favors the killer more in certain circumstances, where if the killer gets a hit at a pallet and you start bleeding on their screen, you should take damage. It should favor the killer in that situation. But on the other hand, I have to complain about playing Survivor 2. Dead Hard feels so much worse than it did on peer-to-peer servers, and I'm not sure what it is. But, and some people might disagree with me, but I find Dead Hard is just as inconsistent as it's ever been, and arguably sometimes, depending on the games, it's like highly inconsistent with the window of you pressing the button on the keyboard and it actually working. I feel like there's a huge difference. So, specifically Dead Hard I think needs to get looked at too. There's something with the time it takes for you to press the button on the keyboard and for it to actually happen, where there's like this disconnect, where either you're not dead harding fast enough, or it feels like you press the button and nothing happens. So to compensate, you start having to press the button a little bit earlier, like predictively, and it just feels really bad because, like, I know on the killer side, on the flip side, it's super easy to just counter that. You just wait until the survivor panic presses Dead Hard, and then you swing. So, yeah, I think Dead Hard's needs a looking at. Like, it's always going to be a good perk just because of the fact of what it does. And there's always going to be people who have a better time with it, I think. Depends on your ping, too. But noticeably, I think it's gotten worse over time in terms of detection. So I think they should look into that, too. One more thing that I think they could look at for State of the Game is, okay, some of the balancing updates. I think, and this is probably something that they might have to hire someone to do, but I think Behavior should hire a person whose job it is to talk to the community, look at the stats, review the stats, take suggestions from the community and stats, and create these polls that they can put on their website or put in game, where they're asking questions of how the players want the game to be balanced. Where it's like, hey, should we make Deerstalker base kit for all killers? Yes or no? And people could vote whether or not they think that this should pass the poll. And basically you could have it so that if 75% of people or more voted yes, then it could go into a PBE and people could try it. And then they could collect feedback from the PBE and see if that could work its way into the main game. You could try other things too with like Pyramid Head, like, for example, should Pyramid Head not have the ability to avoid Decisive Strike by cage, like, should his infection status where you can Kinky Cage go away after a certain amount of time? Maybe you could put something like that on a PBE question, try it, gather some data, and then try and work it into the game if that seems to be what the players want, just as an example, right? So I think that there needs to be a way for players to give their feedback to the developers in a way that they feel matters, because I know there's a lot of feedback surveys and shit that DBD has put out, and I've answered like 4 or 5 of them, a couple on stream, and it just feels like nothing ever comes with it. Sure, you guys take the data, I'm not saying you don't do anything with it, but I never hear back about anything, so it doesn't feel like, it feels like I'm just shouting into the void. It feels like I put time and effort into writing my opinions out, and nobody cares. Because there's no, like, feedback, there's no PBE with some, like, test changes, there's nothing. And that, like, kind of gets into the next thing. I think there needs to be, like, weekly or bi-weekly or monthly changes to the game. I think your goal should be every 2 weeks there should be a new PBE, and patches don't have to be that frequent, but every 2 weeks you should try a new batch of updates to the game. That would be like 104 test builds a year. I don't think that's too much. I think the community could handle it, and ideally you would be constantly gathering feedback from those PBEs. So maybe you get feedback, you do a PBE where like Michael moves faster in tier 1, okay? At the beginning of tier 1. And you take feedback from that, and it's like, now he's too fast, it feels like. So you tweak it a little bit on the next PBE, put the next PBE out, and people are like, it actually needs to be a little faster now. And then you tweak it, you go a little faster, and then you put out the next PBE, and people are like, Chef's kiss, perfect, great, thanks for listening to us, and then maybe that can work itself into the game, you know? Also, I think a lot of the old killers could use some love. It's hard to say what you should do about all the old killers, but, like, Doctor specifically, oof. I feel like Doctor's in a really bad state right now. Some of the old killers, too. Arguably Clown. They just need a little bit of love. So if you could send them some love this Christmas, I'll be thankful for that, okay? I realize this video is like 20 minutes now, so I do want to go over part 2 for killer changes that I think need to happen, and part 2 for survivor changes that need to happen. But let me know what you guys think about part 1, which was just kind of general gameplay things. Oh, and the idea from polling comes from Old School RuneScape. You can look at Old School RuneScape's websites. They have put out like 70 polls over the years that players have voted for, and I play that game too. It's a great system for doing what the players want, and players having a way to voice what they want to happen to the game. And I think that's really essential moving forward with this game. Also, I want to touch on DBD 2 in the future and whether or not I think that would be a good idea, so stay tuned for that. Interesting thought. Leave a comment down below what you think about these changes, if you would like to see more PBEs all the time, and sub to my YouTube channel, follow me on Twitch, link down below, ttv/Sconty. Peace, Merry Christmas everybody, bye!